This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 431.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. Why, hello, everybody. This is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events. There is one next weekend. Well, actually, it's not one next weekend. It's technically June 2nd through June 4th. So it starts before the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. It is WordCamp Europe, the EU, which is in Porto, Portugal this year. It was postponed, as we all know. And there was a rumor that I was going to go. And I didn't go. I'm not going, actually. I'm still in North Carolina. I'm recording this in my studio. And I'm not going after all. So sorry for those who thought I was going to be there, but there's a lot of work getting back in the U.S. with COVID protocols, and then also just schedule with my wife and her work and my kids finishing his junior year of high school, etc. So I'm not going to be there. Sorry. Hope to make some other WordCamp stateside or other country sometime this year, hopefully. Just don't know which one yet. So anyway, all right. Moving on to segment 1 in the news. A few things to talk about here. WordPress 6.0 was released. It is called, the code name was Arturo, which was inspired by Grammy-winning jazz musician Arturo O'Farrill. It's O-F-A-R-R-I-L-L. Just to kind of clear that up. A lot of changes in WordPress 6.0. I'm diving into it this week. Going to look into it. And actually, I might do a review on it next episode or 1 or 2 episodes from now. Probably next week, I think. Anyway, so WordPress 6.0, of course, before you update, make sure you have a backup and test things, make sure things work. Okay? Also in the news, the Kim Parsell Memorial Scholarship returns for WordCamp US 2022. This memorial scholarship is it's there. Kim committed to making contributions to the open source project, of course. So the scholarship is awarded to someone who identifies as woman, is a WordPress contributor, has never attended a WordCamp before, never attended WordCamp US before, and requires financial assistance to attend. There's a link in the show notes. You can apply up to June 26th. Applications are open right now. So I'll put a link in the show notes for that. Also in the news, 2 more things. Groundhogg Aquires Hollarbox, Hollarbox, Hollar. So Hollarbox was like one of those little pop-ups, what was that first one called? I forgot what it was called. But anyway, it's like a little pop-up box. But Groundhogg has acquired them. So that's good news, I guess, suppose, for that. Congratulations to those involved there. And also in the news, WordPress celebrated 19 years this past week. It is 19 years old now. Happy birthday to WordPress itself. It's crazy to think that I've been using it for 13 years myself out of those 19. So that's kind of weird. It just kind of puts it in perspective in that sense. I'm like, wow, it's been a long time on both of those counts. Anyway, all right, moving on. Segment 2, Q&A episode. That's right, we have questions. Meat Potatoes, this week's episode is the Q&A. So I have 3 questions here, and I'm going to ask them here, and I'll read them out, and then I'll give them my answers. First one, there seems to be a bunch of layoffs recently in the tech space. With that, what complementary skills are best showcased when applying for jobs in the WordPress ecosystem? It's from, quote, a friend of the show. All right, well, standard answer, it depends, because it comes down to what area you are in or focusing on. Back-end development, front-end development, design, marketing. And with that, the basics are, of course, key here. If you're a developer, you want to learn the code base and the PHP. I mean, as a matter of fact, I have a friend of mine who went from support recently to developer and is about to take a much deeper dive into PHP per upper management and the requirement to kind of move into a full-time advanced developer role. So I also want to mention, so it's there's no one thing you can do. There's a lot of things you need to do technically. Complementary skills, it's a pretty broad stroke. So you kind of need to figure out what it is you want to focus on first and foremost, what you want to move into. So with that, I want to mention that there are other tech stacks that may have some value to you as a way to bridge technology. Because just last week, I had lunch with another friend of mine, a friend of a friend actually, who indicated they really needed a Python developer. And they looked at me and said, hey, are you a Python developer? I'm like, no. Or if I knew anyone who did have that experience. So I'm looking around to see if I know anyone with Python. But because I've looked into Python on and off and on for the past 2 years or so, and it has interest to me. The code base has interest to me. I like the idea of coding, as do other languages. But all that said, if you're in development, if you want to stay that way, PHP, MySQL, CSS, yes. But it might be a good idea also to look into other stacks because the world's evolving. WordPress is here, yes, and it's 19 years old, great. But there are other things you can maybe bridge the gap and to find work in the tech space, period, not just WordPress. I think sometimes we need to open up our eyes and our options as well. So, okay. Hope that helps. A friend of a show. I'm not sure who that is, actually. So it was anonymous. All right. Next one is second question. You've mentioned the idea of changing directions in the past, a few years ago even. What would it take for you to actually do that? Is it money or some other interest? This was sent in by Anne. Hi, Anne. Thanks for the question. Wow. It's a deep question. It's So I'll word it this way. I'll explain it the way I tell recruiters who reach out to me pretty consistently over on LinkedIn. I say, and I quote this is what I literally say in my text, in my messaging back to them. I say, dear recruiter, or dear Jane, whatever it may be. Hi, I'm not looking for a job, but I am open to amazing opportunities. End quote. Literally, that's what I say. And then I go on to say, I ask the question, does the company have a range in mind? Okay, because I say that first and foremost because I want to know what they're thinking from a salary range, because money is important for my place in life, what I'm doing right now, but it's not just about the money for me. I want to do something that I am going to be valued accordingly, and I'm going to bring value to them as well. I want to be an even trade of values, I suppose, and ethics as well. I want it to be a good company. I want them to treat their people well. I want there to be representation across the board. But it's not just about money for me. It's not how I roll. A good salary and an offer would be part of the equation, but I want to do something that I want to do if I'm going to get paid. And honestly, my autonomy has a lot of value to me. Me being able to do what I want when I want, kind of, which has pros and cons as far as focus and, the stress of running my own business for the past 5.5 or so years. But the autonomy does have a lot of value that you can't gain back in just money. I mean, there's a point there, but, there's a potential issue there. So, it's one of those things that I'm just not 100% sure of if and when that's going to happen. I mean, again, I'm open to it. I'm interested in certain amazing opportunities, but we'll see what happens in the future. So, I mean, and if you're reaching out to ask me if I'm looking for a job, let me know what the range might be. So, and the reason I mentioned the range on salary is because I don't want to waste people's time. If the company's thinking this base salary at, I don't know, whatever it may be, let's just do a number of $50,000 a year. And I'm thinking, double that or triple that based on my lifestyle, where I live, my age, and my kids in college. Well, I can save a lot of time. I'm like, what? That's not going to work for me just because, it just doesn't work. So I just like to not waste people's time. Okay. So, all right. Third and final question. This was sent in again by anonymous. I think I know who this is. Is the Get Options podcast ever coming back? Oh yeah. It says anonymous super fan. Well, actually it's a great question. And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, that podcast is going to come back, and relatively soon as 2 days after this episode drops, I believe there'll be a new podcast episode coming out. So, all right. Thanks for asking that one. Anonymous super fan. That's pretty cool. All right. Moving on to segment 3, the tip and tool of the week. This is a tip of resources based on the concept of what I mentioned earlier about Python, because I had this saved and went back and looked. It's the top 11 GitHub repos to learn Python. It was put together by Claire D. Costa back in 2020. It could be a little dated in that aspect, but I looked. These links seem to be working. It's over on towardsdatascience.com. There's a link in the show notes if you're interested in learning Python and having some repos to kind of take a look at. There'll be a link in the show notes. All right, so that's it for this week. Let me wrap it up. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use the SpeakPipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, that'd be awesome. You can go over to kitchensinkwp.com/Patreon. If you want to sponsor the show, you can do that too. There's a form on the website to apply for that or to fill out. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right, bye-bye.